Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody. We are into the fantasy football playoffs. It's the first round. It's week 15, and this is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we hope you prevail throughout your first round of your fantasy playoffs and the rest of the 2023 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. And Nick, apologies for us being, short or late, I should say, for the show. Let's get into it. We're live week 15, and we are on Instagram as well. So those that are joining us on Instagram, thank you so much.
Yeah, sweet. Let's get into it. Fantasy playoffs, baby.
Sure. Well, we don't have any questions at the moment, but when you do jump in the chat and ask a question, we will get into your questions. We do prioritize your questions over what we're doing from a week-to-week preview, and then we'll go through each game, talk about injuries, and kind of set the stage, for that week and for that game. So, very quick plugs first. This is the first time you're joining us. Thank you so much. Sunday mornings, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to try to do Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram every Sunday for the rest of this fantasy football season, which is 2 more weeks or so, to help you win your fantasy football championships. If you're watching live on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Drop that bell icon to help us grow the channel, get notifications every time we do go live. Facebook, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Twitter, Instagram is PrimeTimeFFPod. So, like we said, we'll prioritize your questions, but we don't have any questions at the moment to prioritize to. So we'll get into a week-to-week preview. So first off here, we have the Chicago Bears at the Cleveland Browns. For injury news, DJ Moore is questionable with an ankle injury. I believe he's expected to play.
Yep.
This is a tough matchup for the Bears offense. How do you feel about Nick? Who we playing, who we not playing?
I think DJ Moore, you still got to throw out there. I don't love the matchup, and Justin Fields becomes the big question mark. I think with all the backup quarterbacks and injuries at the quarterback position this year, I'd feel a lot more comfortable rolling out Justin Fields than I would than some of the other backups that you're looking at across the league. But if you have another top tier starter, I think you really got to look to pivot. Cleveland's been shutting down teams left and right all year. Probably the second or third best defense on the season. So. A Bears offense that's not incredibly explosive. I don't expect to put up a lot of points this week. I do think Chicago could sneakily upset them. I think Flacco comes a little bit back down to earth, but for your fantasy football playoffs, I don't think you're going to get the same ceiling with Justin Fields that you get in some of those easier matchups.
Yeah, I have to play Fields in a league, and this is the predicament that I think a lot of Fields owners are in. Who would the other quarterback be that you would kind of play instead of him? Because if you drafted Fields, probably drafted him early in your draft, and you probably expected him to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I'm sure you did draft the backup somewhere down the line, but who's the backup that you maybe drafted, and why would you play him? Your backup is probably a Derek Carr or maybe a Russell Wilson, who maybe you considered playing against the Lions defense, but I'm not sure what Russ did last night. I watched the game, but fantasy wise, I'm not sure what his numbers looked like. He had 200 yards and a touchdown. So I guess your best case scenario is if you drafted Fields and maybe you drafted Dak a couple rounds later or something. But I don't know how many Fields owners are benching Fields today, because I don't know who the other quarterback is. On my roster that I'm playing Fields, my other quarterback is CJ Stroud, but he's out, so I can't play CJ Stroud. So I guess my thought is I wonder who would be started over Fields if you have Fields on a team in a 10 or 12 man or 14 man.
So looking at the schedule and who those mid-level quarterbacks are, I think Jordan Love I would start over against Tampa Bay.
He just put up a stinker against the Giants. So there's no trust in Jordan Love.
I would put.
You love Jordan Love. I don't think there's trust in Jordan Love in a fantasy football playoff game.
I would play Matthew Stafford hosting Washington pretty comfortably over. And then if you want to take the risk with Geno playing on Monday night, I don't know if I'd take the risk myself, but I do think if Geno is out there, he puts up a better week.
Would you would play Geno or Love over Fields? So this is your team, first round of your fantasy playoffs. You're trusting them over Fields.
I would play Love confidently over Geno. Having to wait until the Monday night would scare me enough not to.
Man,
But
you love Jordan Love.
I think he's a lot better than people think.
Yeah, but look at his fantasy numbers against the Giants on Monday night. He lost people matchups to get into the playoffs.
I mean, he's the QB9 on the year. He had 10 points, which isn't great. The 4 weeks prior are 19, 21, 26, 24. I mean, everybody's puts up a dud now and then. Patrick Mahomes has multiple bad fantasy games this year as well, but you don't see people jumping to bench him. Sam Howell's currently the QB6. He's got 2 games under 12 fantasy points. Like, everybody's got a bad game now and then. Just because it came against the Giants more recently doesn't mean that you should pivot if someone's shown consistently that they could be a star.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just me not taking off my anti-Jordan Love glasses, but I think that's a really tough one for me.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna move on. Bucks at the Packers. Speaking of Jordan Love, Chris Godwin for the Bucks is listed as questionable with a knee injury. He's apparently a game time decision, so watch that. It's a 1:00 game. You'll know by about, I think, 11:30, if I'm correct, if he's playing or not.
Yep.
So watch that. Aaron Jones is listed as questionable with a knee injury. I believe he's missed the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think I saw that Matt LaFleur said he's probably going to come back this week. Christian Watson with a hamstring injury is listed as doubtful with hamstring, so probably won't play. A.J. Dillon has a thumb injury. I think he broke his thumb.
He did break his thumb.
He did practice Friday, so he should be good to go as well, which makes that running back room much more interesting, especially if you have one or the other running back. So, Nick, I would love your thoughts on kind of what we're doing here. First off, a question here on the Instagram feed. So I do have the Instagram feed open. They're not coming directly to our StreamYard channels, so I do have to flip over to it, but I will check, guys. From bro883179, I hope you could hear us. Please let us know. It's the first time we're streaming on Instagram because it just became a thing like 2 or 3 days ago on our StreamYard. So if you can hear us, bro, answering our question, let us know. So we have Matthew Stafford against the Commanders or Patrick Mahomes against the Chiefs. What do you think?
What was the first one? I'm sorry.
Matthew Stafford against the Commanders or Patrick Mahomes against the Chiefs?
Against the Patriots.
I'm sorry, the Patriots. Why did I say Chiefs? I'm too many.
That's all good. It's all good. I would go with. I think you got to trust your stars. I don't love the Chiefs matchup, but I mean, how do you bench someone you drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round or gave up massive players to go grab halfway through the season?
It is the age-old question in the fantasy playoffs. In our league a couple of years ago, Nick, again, I brag about it all the time. Best fantasy team I have ever assembled, and I'll put it up against any fantasy team that I've seen assembled in this league. And I had Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf against the Rams in round 2. This is Russell Wilson's kind of sort of MVP season. He had 40-something touchdowns, 4,000 yards, or whatever. His stats were freaking nuts. And DK's stats were nuts too. And I was very worried about the Rams matchup. And I had Justin Herbert, rookie quarterback at the time, who was a very good fantasy performer, as my backup. And I stuck to my gut and played Russell Wilson, and it burned me. And I knew it would burn me, but I could not. Part of me is a Seahawks fan, and part of me also knowing what he'd done for me that season. I could not play him. Now, I think Mahomes is in a better position than Russell's against those Rams. The Patriots are not a good football team. They've proven that. So I think you have to play Mahomes here, but Stafford does have a good matchup. But I think Mahomes is just a guy you just can't bench, especially in your playoffs.
Agreed.
All right, some questions, some comments here in our other chat from YouTube. From Deshaun, he said, "What's up, guys? One league I played Laporta. LOL, not looking good." To those of you guys that played, meaning he was in your lineup. If you had started Laporta, Goff, or Antonio Gibson, or maybe even Amon-Ra. Congratulations, you had an awesome night last night.
Yeah, and I'm on Ra, but it was up against Sam Laporta, so kind of canceled out, which wasn't as fun.
Well, yeah.
And this is my 14-person league where the winner this week goes to the championship. So would really love a win here.
Nick's also guaranteed money if he wins.
Yeah,
guaranteed to make money, at least a profit. All right, from Dylan Fink, he says, "Happy fantasy playoff, guys." He says, awful PPR pick 2. Tony Pollard at the Bills, Jaden Reed at Tampa Bay, James Cook versus Dallas. So that's our first question. Are we both agreeing on Tony Pollard, or are we on the fence about Tony Pollard?
We're both in agreement on Tony Pollard.
Okay. Yep. And then it's Jaden Reed or James Cook. I have James Cook going in a league over Devon Achane against your Jets. I think I'm going to go on Jaden Reed here. I think he said like over 15 fantasy points in 3 straight matchups or something. Going up against the Bucs defense. I think the Packers let them throw it a bit. I think their front seven's better than their back end. So the running game may not be there. Nick did mention that Jordan Love had 3 straight performances over 15 fantasy points before the dud against the Giants. And Jaden Reed seems to be his favorite target, and Christian Watson is out. So all signs to me point towards Jaden Reed being a pretty viable option.
I will say Nick always loves to lean receiver in the flex spot. Personally, I'm going to go James Cook here. Last 3 games for James Cook, you said over 15 for Jaden Reed. Well, how could 20, 16, and 25 be for you? After the bye, 25 points for James Cook. They used them as an outside receiver. They used them as a running back. They put him all over the field because they realized outside of Stephon Diggs, he might be the second most talented player on the most loaded offense in football. So I would be very comfortable and kind of expect James Cook to be one of the league-winning running backs for your playoff shot.
I hope you're right. I am worried about James Cook. I guess because like every time I've seen the Bills on my red zone for the past, I don't know, what week we in, 14 or something. I feel like every time I see the Bills on the red zone, it's the big boy Latavius Murray jumping in the end zone. And I'm just like, come on. Drives me nuts.
I feel you.
But I hope you're right. All right. Second question he's got here. Pick one. I'm assuming it is full PPR. Yep. Jalen Waddle against your Jets. Jaden Reed versus the Bucs. Take it, Nick, because you're very anti-Dolphins, and not because you're a Jet fan, but because you're worried about that Jets defense.
So Reed has the better matchup, but if Tyreek Hill plays, Jalen Waddle last time that these two teams met put up 20 points against the Jets because they were able to put Waddle in motion. Obviously, so much attention goes to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill got much more limited in the Jets game than Waddle did. Waddle put up a very solid game. He had a better matchup across the board. So I would lean more on Jalen Waddle and his superstardom, although I do think Reed has the much better matchup and probably presents the higher ceiling. If Tyreek's not there and Waddle's going to be getting double teamed across the entire game, it's going to be very hard to put him out there against the best secondary in football.
Okay, I'll agree to that. Pick one defense. The Titans defense against Houston. I think that's very sneaky. The Saints defense against the Giants, or the Ravens against Jacksonville. Ravens D has been pretty stout, but I probably wouldn't play them against Jacksonville. It's a Sunday night game. It's a big game for both teams. I probably would lean against that one. I think I would give the Titans a slight edge. It looks like, again, I look at the injury report, but it looks like no Stroud, no Nico Collins, no Tank Dell, obviously. I think it could be a rough game for Houston. I think I would give the Titans a slight edge over the Saints, but I am playing the Saints defense in the league.
I'm playing the Saints defense in a league as well. I would pivot to the Titans. Houston was the team everybody was targeting, playing against, because we didn't think Stroud would be this good. Nico Collins, Tank Dell. We didn't think any of these three would be as good as they have been. With all three of them out of the lineup, we know the team that we're getting. We're getting the worst offense in football with a defensive-minded head coach in a division game against Mike Vrabel, who's one of the top 5 defensive coaches in football. So the matchup for Houston is an absolute nightmare this week. The game script is going to be hand the ball to Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears. You're going to see the two of them and that Titans team, frankly, dominate the clock all game. They're going to get the ball for 40 minutes. Houston's barely going to be out there and not going to have enough time to put up enough points.
Yeah, the time of possession is going to be nuts. One more. I'm assuming this is also PPR. Pick one. James Conner versus the Niners. Don't like. Jerome Ford versus Chicago. Devin Singletary versus Tennessee. Clyde Edwards-Helaire against New England. I would rank them Jerome Ford.
Yep.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. James Conner. Devin Singletary.
Yep. Totally agree. Jerome Ford has to be the one here.
He's been pretty solid, and it's a good matchup for him, too. From Deshaun, 12-man PPR. Is it okay to flex Evan Ingram, or should I go Gabe Davis, Jahan Dotson, or Zay Jones?
I would go Ingram. Pretty comfortable.
I think I would go Ingram, but Zay Jones could steal his targets, and you could kind of regret it. But my other thing is, I don't think you confidently play Gabe Davis. I feel it's a Gabe Davis game. He always did a couple of them. Just like Tyler Lockett, he did like 2 or 3 goose eggs in the past few weeks. I can't confidently tell you as a fantasy analyst or whatever to play Gabe Davis. However, I would not be shocked if he has like a monster game in what should be a high-scoring, huge game for both teams.
I think it's going to depend on how McCarthy does the defense, because it's either going to be Gilmore or Bland shadowing Diggs. It's going to be shadowing Diggs and Davis. If it's Gilmore on him, Gabe Davis is not going to get open. He's not going to be enough of a threat. But if he's on Deron Bland, he has more. He's not a DK Metcalf or AJ Brown sized receiver, but height wise, he's tall. He's athletic. Like, he checks a lot more boxes to be effective against Bland. And I think they're going to put Gilmore on him, which means Gabe Davis is going to get pretty much shut down.
Well,
in this game.
How scared are you of that secondary? Because Geno and the Seahawks just carved them up with 2 weeks ago. Both DK and JSN had really solid games.
Yeah, it's because, like I just said, the Bland matchup for DK it's an athletic, clearly outmatched for Bland. And then Bland came up with a big pick on Geno near the end. Not to remind you or anything, but
yeah, I mean, that's Geno for you. I mean, it would help if the defense could like get off the field on 3rd down. It's pretty
sure that could help
nice.
just a tad.
I saw on Twitter, not to get on a tangent, but I saw on Twitter the Seahawks have like in their division they're like number 1 in sacks. They have Jaron Reed's number 1 in D tackle pressures or sacks or something like. They have all these really good stats, and they look really bad. From George, always has a DeBrickashaw Ferguson question. So, would you like Nick Mangold's barbecue or Tommy DeVito's mom's cutlets more?
For Ferg, I would probably say the barbecue.
I think he's a barbecue guy.
As from Staten, Italy, I would love some Tommy DeVito cutlets.
All right, Nick, I made you to look this up for me. From Patty, pick one. Aaron Jones without Dillon. I don't know if AJ Dillon was ruled out. He wasn't as of this ESPN document we go through. Chuba Hubbard is a rainy game, a lot of run game, or James Conner versus the 49ers. I think I kind of would rather play Aaron Jones. Maybe that's leaning too much on the name. I don't like the other matchups. I am terrified of James Conner against that Niners front. I can't tell you who the last running back was that had like a really good game against them. And the Cardinals look like a bad football team, which they kind of are. Chuba's been okay, but the Panthers have, who do they have this week? I'm just anti-Panthers. They're a bad football team.
Yeah, I agree with Nick there. Chuba Hubbard's had a kind of a solid stretch over the last 3. And I think they have a fairly good matchup this week.
I'm literally scrolling through the entire game log trying to find where their game is. They're not Monday night.
They have the Falcons. They have one of the
there
worst.
it is. Yep.
That's right. They have the did you see how much the tickets were selling for this game?
45 cents.
45 cents.
But then parking's going to be 30. Food's going to be 30. You're going to spend $100 to watch the Falcons and Panthers.
The game is on the house, though, pretty much.
I'd play Aaron Jones. I think that's your best game. Both of those teams, remember, I love playing players that are competing for playoff spots, like legitimate playoff spots, not fantasy playoff spots. And both the Packers and the Bucs are vying for either their division or their wild card. So I'd rather play somebody in that game. So I would go with Aaron Jones, who could catch a couple balls, could score, 10, 15 points. I just don't like the other matchups.
I agree. Although if AJ Dillon does play, I'd be more tempted to lean on Chuba Hubbard.
Okay. All right. No more questions at the moment. So keep dropping those questions whenever you get them. We will pivot to your questions first, but for the time being, we'll go back to our game-by-game preview. So Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. CJ Stroud is out with a concussion injury. That sucks a lot. Noah Brown is listed as questionable with a knee injury. Nico Collins was not at Friday's practice with a calf injury, so I don't think he's playing either. And Tank Dell's obviously out with his injury. I would love to know if Dalton Schultz is playing, though. I don't see him on the injury report, so I assume he's back, but he's missed 2 or 3 games. But I would love to know if Dalton Schultz is playing. But anyway, it seems like we're going to get Case Keenum with not a lot of ammo around him against the Titans. So Nick, I mean, who do you like in this game? I guess. I mean,
there's 2 people: the Derrick Henry and the Titans defense. That's it.
What about? Can I fancy you a DeAndre Hopkins revenge game?
Yes, you can fancy me one of those. I would be inclined to say that should be a good one as well.
I think DeAndre Hopkins is very playable. this week.
Sure. That's fair.
The Titans also aren't technically like out of it. They do have the same record as your Jets, and I've been telling Jets fans they're out of it, so maybe I shouldn't be saying this. It's a dumb argument to make. But I don't know. The Titans are 5-8. The division leaders are Colts are 8-6. They just they did win last night. Jags have a tough matchup with the Ravens tonight. They could pick up a game on Houston today, and they have Houston again in 2 weeks. So I don't think the Titans will win the division, but I think Vrabel's going to hype the team up as like, hey, we could win this division, and then they're going out there and playing for a lot. I think it could be a Titans walloping. I'm not going to trust Case Keenum to go out there and light it up.
I agree with that.
All right, some questions in the chat. We love our questions. Mark De Silva, happy fantasy football day. Full PPR, need 2 in my flex. Jalen Waddle against the Jets. Zay Flowers against the Jags. Clyde Edwards-Helaire or McKinnon against the Pats. I think I'm kind of going both receivers here. Nick knows I love leaning on my receivers. Zay Flowers has been excellent, arguably a rookie of the year. That's not, for a receiver, it's not named Tank Dell. He seems to be the number 1 receiving option over there, but Odell's in the mix as well. I think the receivers have kind of taken over Isaiah Likely's targets. Could be a high-scoring game, maybe not, depending on the weather and depending on the defensive play of the Ravens. But it's a big game. Like the Jags again are competing for the division, and the Jags aren't they like 8-2 or something? The Jags are 8-5, and the Ravens are 10-3. So this is a big game for both teams vying for both their divisions and for like a number 1 seed. So again, I love playing people in these matchups. So I would like to play Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers is my favorite play out of this bunch. And then I would go with Jalen Waddle. Going back to Nick's argument about him and Tyreek Hill, but you could kind of give that a short spiel about that again, since Mark may not have heard that.
Yeah, I agree with Nick here. I think the answer is in the question. If you have to pick which Chiefs running back, then it's the question of if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. If you have 2 running backs, they could be both. But I would lean more on the McKinnon. I think he has the more touchdown upside, but it's too close. It could go either way based on the touchdown. So I agree with Nick. Zay Flowers, I think you can lock in comfortably. And then Jalen Waddle, I know the matchup looks scary because it's the toughest secondary in football. Last time he faced the Jets, he scored 20 fantasy points. So go off what you know. And what you know is that Jalen Waddle, last time he played the Jets, cooked them. If Tyreek Hill is out, it becomes more of a question because he becomes the focal point of the offense. He's the number 1 person that the corners are looking at. He's schemed against better. But I expect Tyreek Hill to be out there. Mike McDaniel told Tyreek Hill, it's your decision if you want to play. And Tyreek Hill, after hurting his ankle, was out on the field for a few extra snaps that game. So
yeah, I think he'll play.
I think he's going to say, yeah, I'm out there.
All right, from Patty, Dalton Kincaid or Isaiah Likely?
I would go Kincaid. As good.
I think I'll go Kincaid too.
Even though Likely had a very good week, it became a fantastic week because of a 54-yard touchdown to start the game. That's not going to happen. Mark Andrews rarely got big touchdowns. Likely's not a little bit more athletic, but he's not going to be the big touchdown threat. Most tight ends never really are. So I wouldn't expect him to be anything more than like a 6 to 7 targets, 4 to 5 catches, and 60 to 70 yards if you're lucky. So Kincaid is going to present more touchdown upside. He's going to present more opportunity on a game-to-game basis. So I would lean on him.
All right, full PPR. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, or Breece Hall. It's always Breece Hall. He's too talented to bench, and he had like 25 points last week or something. They figured out that Zach Wilson can dump the ball off to Breece Hall, and it could be an awesome offense. I shouldn't say an awesome offense. An offense that can compete and ensure that the Jets defense can still win that game. But that's the game the Jets have to play. Run the ball with Breece or dump it off to Breece. Let him be your focal point. Get Garrett Wilson his receptions, and just let the defense handle business. I wouldn't pick your Jets to win this game, but if the Jets do win this game, Aaron Rodgers is maybe sort of coming back next week. They are 5-8. It is going to be, they're going to need a lot to go right. I'm not going to count them out, but I if you ask me to pick my playoffs, I wouldn't have the Jets anywhere near it just because of their record. I think it's going to be very tough to squeak in there. And I think if they had 6 wins going into today, I think I could make a stronger case, but I think it's going to be really tough for them to get to Well, they
I
have 4
agree with
games
that.
left. They would have to get to 9 wins, and they would have to hope that 2 or 3 teams lost out basically. But anyway, my point being, I think the Jets will compete in this game. I think if Tua has a stinker, they could win this game. But either way, I want to play Brees Hall. He's guaranteed targets. He's guaranteed rushing attempts. He's guaranteed red zone opportunities if the Jets are in the red zone. Clyde and McKinnon, I'm not sure which one gets the bulk. I would rather play McKinnon over Clyde if that was your question. But when you have a guy like Brees Hall, who you did draft pretty highly and was probably your running back 1 or 2, you have to roll with him for your playoffs.
Yeah, also, Brees is the RB9 on the year. He has not scored under 10 fantasy points since week 5. I don't think Nick or I would be shocked if McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire scored under 10 each. So Brees has shown the stronger floor for you. He's shown the more of the star talent. He's genuinely the RB1 on his team versus the 2A, 2B because Pacheco's out. Which one are you going to play? There's all the signs are pointing to Brees Hall on this one.
From Jojo on Instagram, good friend of mine. He goes, "Look at this guy, Father Cap, Jets money line, lock it in."
Appreciate it.
All right, from Deshaun, start at flex. I need a boom play. James Conner, Jerome Ford, Jaden Reed, or Jackson Smith in Jigba. You want a boom play. James Conner is not your boom play, so let's cross him out right there.
There's only one player on this list that's all ceiling.
Is it JSN?
No.
Or Reed? I would say Reed. I think it's Reed. I would say Reed. I think if you want a boom play, I think it's Reed or JSN. I put Reed very high, and then I put JSN at 2, then Ford, then Connor.
I agree. If it's all ceiling, it's Reed, JSN, Ford, Connor. If it's floor, it's Reed, Ford, JSN, Connor.
He wanted a boom play, so we're giving him boom. I just want to see what Jaden Reed's numbers are over the past 4 weeks. I know they're pretty good. I'm looking right on Fantasy Pros here. So his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 19, 19, 15, 5.6 was a stinker. Yes. And then 20. No Christian Watson today. I think that's your boom play for sure. And Jaden Reed.
Yeah. Agreed.
From Ben Schuler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, or Devin Singletary for the flex spot. I really don't want to play Singletary because Dameon Pierce is still there, and I think it's a bad matchup for the running backs in general and for the Texans team. So I mean, do you agree on that, or do you kind of put Singletary in this mix?
I don't want to play him. I do think Singletary is clearly the RB1 there. Dameon Pierce should be on all waiver wires by this point. But I mean, I would not want him in this matchup. The game script means absolutely nothing. The only way he's going to be fantasy effective is if they have to use him like Alvin Kamara, where you're dumping the ball off to him 8 times because your offensive line can't hold up for your backup quarterback. So yeah.
I think our question here that me and you can debate is McKinnon or Clyde. I personally would rather go McKinnon. I think he has more receiving upside, and I like receiving upside in PPR. I think he has more touchdown upside as well. I would go with a lot of the upside of McKinnon over Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Totally agree with you there.
Cool. All right, now Joe's back on our YouTube. Jets money line. Jeremy Ruckert, anytime touchdown, mark my words. And then he writes full PPR: Keaton Mitchell, DeAndre Swift, or Kenneth Walker. I don't want to play Keaton Mitchell because, again, Keaton Mitchell's a guy that is totally boomer bust because that's how that Ravens offense is, especially with the running back position, because you don't know who's going to get the bulk of the carries. I thought that the Gus Bus was the red zone guy. I'm not sure if he still is. Lamar is probably still running back 1. Now he writes, better yet, pick 2, Swift, Mitchell, Jaden Reed, or Kenneth Walker. So my favorite on this list is actually Jaden Reed.
Okay.
I don't know if you agree or not, but I'd probably go Jaden Reed. I don't want to play Mitchell if these are your options. And then we're looking at DeAndre Swift against the Seahawks or Kenneth Walker against the Eagles. I think I would go with DeAndre Swift. It's tough because Kenneth Walker has so much red zone upside, and he is the lead bell cow of that offense. But Charbonnet's looked really solid over the past few weeks, and I think he's playing as well, depending on his injury. My debate would be between Swift and Walker. I think Swift has more PPR upside, and Swift probably has more higher ceiling, lower floor, and Walker's probably your safer floor because he does have more of a guaranteed workload, I think, where the Eagles don't really give Swift a guaranteed workload near the goal line. But that Seahawks defense is really bad. It's really bad. And the Eagles need a get-right game. The Eagles need a get-right game.
Oh, they definitely need one.
But the Seahawks do.
No
too.
offense, this is totally the spot to do it. But the Hawks also need their get-right game. I agree with Nick. I think Reed is the one I lock in quickest. Number 2 would be Walker.
Okay.
Swift over the last 3 weeks has not been great. They are featuring more of the running backs, so the snap share is not as high as it was earlier in the year. I think Swift had a game where he had close to a 90% snap share. Now he's down to like 60%, which is not great. On Mitchell's side, it is a pick your poison running back room because you don't know which one is going to explode any given week. For your fantasy championship, I'd rather go with Kenneth Walker. I think that game has the chance to be the highest scoring of the slate. Obviously, Swift and Walker in the same game. But Walker has shown more efficiency. He's been averaging more fantasy points per game than Swift across the entire year, and Mitchell. So he's shown more consistency. It's just the injuries for the last few weeks that I think have owners frustrated. But if you take the fact of 5 weeks of injuries and the bounce back last week, you're looking at somebody that probably would have finished as a top 5 or top 10 running back if he stayed healthy for the entire year. I don't think you should pivot against Philly.
Okay. Apologies to Ben. I missed your second question in your longer paragraph. So I see you bumped it here. Dallas Goedert against Seahawks or Dalton Kincaid against the Bills. This is Goddard's first game back. No, he played last week.
I think he played last week.
He did. I think I would lean Goddard because I'm all over playing against the Seahawks. Jamal Adams can't cover. They have nobody that could cover tight ends.
No.
I love Bobby Wagner to death. A Hall of Famer. He's a little bit slow in coverage. The Seahawks, throughout the entirety of the Pete Carroll era, have never been able to cover tight ends. But not everybody on the Eagles can score points either. But same thing with the Bills. But I would lean Dallas Goedert here.
I think that's I guess I would say the same. I mean, he probably presents more upside against.
I think you're playing for the touchdown
in my
here.
opinion, the worst defense.
I don't think either one is getting a 100-yard game. Like, I think you're playing for the touchdown.
No, I agree, and I do think the touchdown upside probably leans to Goddard more. I think both could have very solid days. I think I do just trust that Goddard's been so consistent for so many years where I'd want it.
Yeah, Joe, if you want to send it to me and you want to set your lineup, just text me and I'll do that as well. That'll just be a question. From Joe, if Tyreek Hill doesn't play, he's going to play. Rashid Shaheed or Keaton Mitchell could also slot in McKinnon. I think I like McKinnon's upside out of the 3.
Yeah, I'd probably go McKinnon. I think he also presents slightly safer floor than Shaheed. You're really preying on 1 or 2 plays making your fantasy week. Keaton Mitchell, you're preying on touchdowns on a team where there's literally 7 different guys that can go run the ball into the end zone, not just pass. They could totally do end arounds with 3 receivers. Lamar can run it in. You got 3 running backs they like. So you never have a safe chance at a touchdown with Keaton Mitchell or any Raven at that point. McKinnon is on the best offense on this list. We could debate if it's Baltimore or Kansas City, but the historically best offense has historically been a touchdown catcher, has historically been the pass catching 3rd down running back for this team. So he checks a lot more of the flex option plays versus the super high upside of Shaheed with 2 catches or Keaton Mitchell. You're saying a prayer on Keaton Mitchell.
The Chiefs also need a bounce back game after the whole media thing with the refs. Like the Chiefs, this has Chiefs walloping kind of written all over it, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so Joe just sent me his lineup. Now his projection, and projections don't mean crap, but again, we're gonna talk about it because it's important here. JoJo's projected to lose 158 to 132. He faced off against Zamir White and Joshua Palmer. He already played Jamar Chase, who got hurt, Cortland Sutton, and Matt Gay. So Nick, right here, let me just talk about his opponents first. Maybe it's better. You know what? Maybe it's better if I send you. Want me to send? Is it easier if I read them all or send it to you? Text you. Okay. All right, Joe. We're gonna come back to you in a sec. Let me send these the screenshots right over to Nick, and then we could both take a look, and we will help you set your lineup. In the time being, while I'm doing that, from Jim Winslow, Chris Olave, who I'm not sure he's gonna play, but still very talented. Cortland Sutton already played last night. Raheem Mostert or Cole Kmet. Pick 2 in full PPR. So it's between Olave, Raheem Mostert, or Cole Kmet. Nick, I'll let you take this first because I know you're scared of the Jets defense, but you're also, I think you have Mostert in a couple of your leagues. Like,
Mostert, I'm locking in. I'm scared of the Jets secondary. I'm not scared of that running room. I think Mostert put up he definitely put up 2 touchdowns on us last time we faced. And right now, I know people are a little scared of Mostert. Dude is clearly the RB2 on the season. He might get caught by Travis Etienne. He's going to finish the season as a top 3 running back. And if Christian McCaffrey weren't such a cheat code where he scores 80 more points than everybody else, it would not be a debate. I think it's really the name that people are taking into account.
Yeah.
If you take a look at his entire season, I mean, there is zero reason to bench this guy.
He said, not sure if you saw this, he said Hopkins, not Sutton. So we're looking at Hopkins against the Titans now. I'm immediately bumping.
I know you're thinking the revenge team, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going Mostert for sure. I don't want to play Cole Kmet against that Browns defense.
Sure. I don't want to play a tight end when I have these other options as well.
So it's between Olave and DeAndre Hopkins. If Olave's out there, I play Olave in a very favorable matchup against the Giants. If not, I go to Hopkins in the revenge game.
Yes. So I'm going to agree with Nick on Mostert, but I'm going to disagree. I told a friend to play Hopkins last night, but his lineup is 6, so we actually can't get Hopkins in there. I want Hopkins in the revenge game. This seems like a Mike Vrabel, just like, I'm going to stamp out my competition game. I'm going to show you that I'm still a good coach and that this team can still compete. I like the revenge game. I like Hopkins in this game. I'm a big Olave guy. People that have been listening to the pod this year, last year, etc., know I'm a big Olave guy. He was one of my guys going into the season. I don't think he's disappointed per se, but he hasn't exceeded the expectations that I hoped he would. Dealing with an injury, dealing with Derek Carr at quarterback, who is just going out there looking like the fish from SpongeBob in the wrapped in bandages. I'm going to give DeAndre Hopkins an edge over Olave in this one. So Nick, I think you've had a minute to look over Joe's matchups. So he's a tough matchup. He's facing guys like Jalen Hurts, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk. He's facing Raheem Mostert. Like he's facing a tough lineup. I think he has to kind of go, upside here. I think you're still playing Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't play Murray over him, so you're still locking in Mahomes. I think me and you can agree on that at least.
Yep.
So why don't we go receivers now? So he's already played Jamar Chase. His second receiver is Puka Nacua, and then his one flex he could play right now is Jaden Reed. So he has Puka Nacua and Jaden Reed. I'm looking at his bench, and I think those are the guys that I would still want in there. The only debate that you might want to have is if he's going to flex Kenneth Walker or Jaden Reed or Swift or whatever combination that is. But I think where he is right now with his receivers of Puka and Jaden Reed in the flex is what he's supposed to do.
I agree. I think I would switch out Swift for Walker, because if you're chasing upside, Swift and Goddard can't score a touchdown on the same drive. You don't want to stack because you're purely chasing upside at this point. You already have another stack with the Rams. You're putting an inherent ceiling on your team to begin with, but it is the best players that you can put out there. So I would make. So
I think that's the only change we'd recommend is Swift in there. I mean, I'm sorry, is Walker in there for Swift.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, from Ben, I could put Goddard / Kincaid in my tight end slot and flex if they are both better than McKinnon. No, I'd still rather flex McKinnon, because both of those tight ends you're kind of banking on a touchdown, and I guess you are with McKinnon, but I feel like the Chiefs are a higher scoring team, higher scoring offense. They need to put up. I think they need to make a statement today after the whole nonsense of last week. I just feel like the Chiefs, one of these weeks, they're just going to click. And when they do click, I think McKinnon's going to be, a part of that offense, especially if Pacheco's out. So I think I'd rather take the chance on McKinnon in my flex than one of those tight ends.
I agree with you, Nick. Although I do think this Chiefs game is going one of two ways. I think it's either going to be like 31 to 10, or it's going to be a Patriots win at like 13 to 6.
Okay.
Like one of the worst Patrick Mahomes games that we see.
Okay.
The Patriots defense over the last 4 weeks actually ranks as like the number 2 in football. So just a heads up, they're on the up and up. And that's without Matt Judon or Christian Gonzalez.
If the Patriots beat the Chiefs today, the NFL world is going to go up in flames.
Oh, 100%.
Mahomes will get slandered and I'll kind of laugh about it.
And then the Broncos fans are going to cry. If we won, we would have been the 1 seed in the division.
Yep.
Well, you should have won.
All right. Next game, again, no questions at the moment. So we're going to flip over to our game-by-game preview. But again, keep asking those questions, guys. We'll prioritize your questions over a game-by-game preview. If you join our Instagram stream, we appreciate you. You can drop our questions down there, and we'll get to those as well. If it's your first time listening to us on a Sunday morning, we have a live every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. That's where we answer your fantasy football questions, help you set your lineups. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell icon to get notifications every time you go live. Drop a like on that video. We'd appreciate that. Well, same thing with Instagram and Facebook. Follow, like, share those links with your friends. We'd appreciate that as well. And we also do a show during the week, Tuesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, it's a live show. The live show then gets uploaded to our audio streaming platforms the next morning, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. So subscribe and listen anywhere that you get your podcasts. So our next game here, Nick, is your Jets at the Dolphins. I forgot this game was in Miami, so that's going to be a factor. Although it's not that hot today, I don't think. At least in Orlando, it's not that hot.
Well, it's going to be 30 degrees hotter on the Jets side of the field. Just keep that in mind.
Because of the sun, yeah.
The stadium was built to. Do you know about that? With the Dolphins?
Yeah, they built the hot side and the cold side. Not cold, but you know what I mean.
They put the shade and the sun side, and the temperature degrees is anywhere from 30 to 40 degree difference on any given Sunday.
I think when I went to that stadium, I was on the shade side. I think in the lower bowl, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha.
All right, Jets at Dolphins. I think this is a pretty straightforward one. I think you're playing your guys of Tyreek Hill. I'm kind of taking this from you. I'm going to let you go because this is normally where I let you kind of talk.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's out there. You're playing Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. You'd need to have a superstar to pivot to, not to play him. But he did score 20 points last time they faced, so there's no fear there. Raheem Mostert scored 20 points on the Jets. That run defense is not as great as that pass defense, so you could trust Mostert to have a very solid day. Tua is the one that I fear. I've been saying it for weeks. I think Tua this week, next week, or the following is going to lose you a fantasy championship. I'd rather not take the risk. I'd rather pivot entirely. Last time he faced the Jets, he scored 7.8 points, as good as Jalen Waddle was. So Tua has shown that he is a very solid quarterback and capable in this league. He has not shown that he could transcend an elite defense at all. And this 3-week stretch is Jets, Cowboys, and I think it's Cowboys and Ravens. So
yeah, it's tough. And Bills right after.
Yeah, so you're looking at the toughest home stretch in football by far. I've told Nick this personally. I think that Miami's going to blow it in classic New York Jets fashion, and they're going to lose to Buffalo in Week 18 and lose the division.
They will.
I think that's their final stretch of the season, which is going to suck because they're a very fun team. But that's where they are. They're a fun team.
Well,
on the
Nick,
Jets side of the ball, go ahead.
Just one comment about the Dolphins. I knocked you guy Herbert for this a lot, but you know what? Tua doesn't have a signature win either. Like not once in his career. They did compete very well with the Eagles on that Sunday night game. We actually watched that game together. But again, no signature win. And this is a big opportunity for Tua over these next 4 weeks. Maybe not today. I wouldn't call this win a signature win if they win. But the Cowboys, I don't think that game's prime time, but a Cowboy game at 4:00 in the afternoon is basically a prime time game. America's watching. The Ravens, I think that's another 4:00 game. And then the Bills might be a Sunday night or a Monday night. We'll see what they do with Week 18. But these are big games for Tua and the Dolphins. And I'm as a football fan, I'm interested to see. I'm not rooting against it, but I am interested, to see.
No, I totally agree. I think as a football fan first, and we love fantasy, obviously, we do a whole show dedicated to it. But as a football fan, I think we want to see the Dolphins in the playoffs. It's more fun. I don't think that this home stretch is going to be favorable for them. I think it's going to be really rough, and you're going to see a lot of true colors on that team. On the Jets side of the ball, since we are a fantasy show, as Nick reminds me when I go on my football tangents, I love Breece Hall. I think Garrett Wilson's a very solid play week to week. When you consider the fact if Zach Wilson were the quarterback and Garrett Wilson were the wide receiver drafted at the start of the year, he probably does not go within the first 6-7 rounds. Like he probably goes where Drake London went. And he's still the wide receiver 20-ish on the year. So he's having a very solid season. He's just not having the second round that you drafted him for season. And then after that, I mean, I'm not taking a shot on Zach Wilson. I think Tyler Conklin, I said it last week, Zach Wilson does love targeting the tight end position, and I think he put together a pretty solid week. Our friend Joe in the chat is always saying that he likes the Jeremy Ruckert anytime touchdown, so we'll ride with the Ruckert touchdown, just maybe not in your fantasy lineup.
I did forget to read injury news for this one. Aaron Rodgers' Achilles is trying to play next week, and Devon Achane with a toe injury is listed as questionable. How do you feel about Achane this week?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel about Achane? I think I'm only playing him if I kind of don't have another really solid option, but I don't.
I'm not playing him comfortably rest of the season.
Yeah. And Tyreek Hill obviously has the ankle injury, but he should play.
Yeah, I agree.
Joe's talking about a Hail Mary game against New England. I don't remember this one. Do you remember this one?
New England Hail Mary game, signature win pop.
He texted me.
Remember.
Nick, Joe also texted me on the side, said that the Jets D is holding Tyreek Hill to under 70 yards.
I'm sure he has a bet on that, which is why he's confident. I don't hate it. I think that's a fair one.
All right. From Vito, with Jamar Chase probably out next week, or at least who should I pick up in full PPR? Zay Jones, Jonathan Mingo, Raheem Shaheed, Demario Douglas, Curtis Samuel, Chris Godwin, or Michael Wilson. If Chris Godwin's on your waiver, he should not be on your waiver wire. So that's a pretty easy one for me. You also got to get through this week's matchup unless you have a bye. But I would go Godwin if somebody has a lower claim than you. If you do have the bye, you're probably not going to have a higher claim. But I would go with probably Zay Jones after that.
I'd go Godwin 1, Curtis Samuel 2.
Okay. All right. From Mel, Don or Dan, full PPR, pick one in the flex. Jake Ferguson, James Conner, or Jerick McKinnon?
I'll let you take it. You got a couple of your guys on that list.
Yeah. Can you tell me who your tight end is? You have to have a top tight end to be playing Ferguson in your tight end shot. Nick knows I'm a Ferguson guy. I called him a league winner after his bye. I think about like 6 weeks ago, I said he'd be a league winner. So after his bye, Jake Ferguson is 14, 22, 12, 6 is a stinker, 4 is a stinker, 19, and 12. I don't like playing tight end in a flex spot for that reason. And he's had really solid numbers for a tight end, but he's still a tight end. I would say here, Ferguson is your safe floor. I think he has a very good game against the Bills. He could find the end zone, couple targets, 50, 60 receiving yards. And then your high ceiling, low floor is Jerick McKinnon. That's what I would go with. I'm very anti-Connor today. And you know what? Maybe he has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I eat my words on our Tuesday show. But that 49ers defense is just ferocious. It's stout. It's like every good word you could use is the 49ers defense. They are shutting down teams. They just shut down the Eagles. They just shut down I feel like they just shut down another team like a week ago. That they demolished the Jaguars. Like they are my number one. They did beat my Hawks. Yeah. They are my number one feared team in the NFL, offensively and defensively. I just don't want to play anybody against them. And James Conner's role has been a bit reduced since Kyler Murray returned. I think last week he had a really good, 2 weeks ago, whenever he last played, I think he had like a 2 touchdown performance. I think it's going to be a really rough one for Arizona. So I would not play James Conner. So Ferguson's my safe floor. I think he's good for like 11 points and maybe a touchdown on top of that. And McKinnon is my high ceiling, low floor. Depends what you're chasing.
I agree for the most part. I think Ferguson is the safest floor. I think McKinnon is the highest ceiling. I agree with Nick entirely on the San Francisco 49ers. I've been saying this for at least a month now. San Fran's got the best roster since Nick's Legion of Boom Seahawks in the league. This is the best roster we've seen in a decade. I don't think there's a chance that anyone stops them on the road to the Super Bowl. And then I genuinely think the only team that can beat them if they were to be in the Super Bowl is Buffalo. I don't think any of the other teams have a shot against them. And it's not really a Buffalo thing so much as a Josh Allen can cook and Stephon Diggs. There's no one in that secondary that can cover him. I don't think any other team can match up that well against them in the league. So I'm right there with you. Yep. It should be a San Fran fly to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. And I don't think there's anyone that's really going to compete within a touchdown for the rest of the season outside of Baltimore later this year. So you are looking at a fantasy nightmare if you have one of your stars playing against them in this home playoff stretch. Yeah, it's not going to be good. All right, next game we have here. By the way, guys, we don't have a hard out today, so keep asking your questions. We're going to go until the last game is talked about. I will say, though, Instagram does end streams after an hour. So if you're watching on Instagram, you'll have to flip over to our YouTube or Facebook. I think a lot of you are already on our YouTube anyway, so that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, Chiefs at the Patriots. Isaiah Pacheco's not playing with the shoulder injury. I think Andy Reid said he'll be back next week, though.
Yep.
Juju Smith-Schuster, I do have to mention him. He had like a 20-point game last week. He has an ankle injury. He's questionable. That's a revenge game. He had a revenge game last week against the Steelers. He might have back-to-back revenge games. And Ramondre Stevenson with the ankle was not spotted at Friday's practice. He will not be playing. And I believe Demario Douglas also cleared concussion protocol. Is Bailey Zappi starting? I think he probably should. Okay. So what do you think, Nick? Chiefs against the Patriots. Bill Belichick's last stand over the last or next 3 weeks, I should say.
Can I tell you, Nick, how I think Bill Belichick's career as a Patriots coach and GM is going to end?
Sure. You could always tell me. Yeah.
Sure. So here's what Bill Belichick has to do. He's got to go to Andy Reid. The next couple weeks going to be rocky. But I have one thing circled on my calendar. It is Week 18, New York Jets. Send Bill Belichick packing out of New England. We've already retired Antonio Brown. Why not add Coach Bill Belichick to the list? He screwed our franchise over, agreed to be our head coach, then decided not to a couple days later. I think it was 2 days later. He hates our organization. He always has a vengeance against us. This man had the audacity to trade his first-round draft pick. I think it was this year. To the Steelers because Tomlin told him, I want to draft this offensive lineman and the Jets are going to. And he moved back for less compensation than he was offered by another team who wanted a different player. Like, he has outright hated the New York Jets for 20 years. And my God, do I hope the Jets win this week so Aaron Rodgers can end Bill Belichick's time in New England. It would be such a perfect symphony for my Jets fans to end their season, even if we don't make the playoffs. Start off with that 9-11 win, end Bill Belichick's career in the division. It's just such a great formula.
He also has no reason to hate the Jets. I don't get it. He chose to leave the Jets. So
correct.
That's always made no sense to me.
It makes zero sense. Same thing with Brady. I love Brady. I actually really like him. He hates the Jets. He just hates the Jets. He always says it.
Maybe it's just New Yorkers. Maybe it's just like a Boston, New York thing. But my other thing is, Nick, a question for you before you get into it. Is this your Super Bowl? You already had your baby bowl, but is this your Super Bowl?
I had 2 Super Bowls this year. It was week 1, right after Rodgers went down. That became a Super Bowl very quickly. And, of course, the Baby Bowl, the classic Baby Bowl. If you're a viewer of the show, you know the Baby Bowl. It was the Jets versus the Broncos in week 5. I'm a Jets fan. My brother's a Broncos fan. My baby was born a couple days before the game. And as Nick dubbed it, the Baby Bowl was going to determine his fandom. It was whether he was going to be a Jets or Broncos fan. I did not agree to this. My child did not agree to this. But guess what? The Jets won, so it didn't matter. The Jets pulled off the big win, so it did not matter. Big dub by the Jets. The big Super Bowl, the Baby Bowl. All right, let's get into this game, or let's get to the.
I don't mean to cut you off. We have a question. It's about the Chiefs, so let's talk about that, and then we'll go into the game. From Omar's burner, nice. Should I start Justin Fields against that Browns defense or Patrick Mahomes against the Patriots defense? Last few performances have had me second guessing. So I wonder how you got Mahomes and Fields on your team, because this is a question me and Nick
I have Mahomes and Fields on my team.
Interesting. So we started the show talking about people that might have to bench Justin Fields today and wondering what quarterback they would have to pivot to. I'm more scared of the Browns defense than I am of the Patriots defense. And I trust Mahomes and the Chiefs more than I trust Fields and the Bears. I do think Fields has a higher ceiling, though. But I would rather trust Patrick Mahomes in my playoff game.
Sure. I mean, listen, you're looking at Mahomes is averaging over the last 4 weeks is averaging 17. And you're looking at Fields averaging 18. So the gap really isn't as big as I think people are painting it out to be. Also during that stretch, the Chiefs obviously have had tougher matchups. They've had a tough schedule. And the offense is not great. New England's defense is on the up and up, but Justin Fields is not going to be a great matchup against the Browns this week. The one thing that would have been the saving grace would be if Justin Fields were playing against a AFC team that could not scheme for him. It would be the same thing as Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson against the NFC in his career is like 19-1. Like, they cannot stop him because it's so hard to game plan for him. And Justin Fields will kind of have the same thing in his career. There's only one problem. He's playing the Browns, who are in the same division as Lamar Jackson. That Bears offense is based entirely off of the Ravens offense. Eberflus said the reason why he was able to tap into Justin and get him to develop a lot more his second year than his first year was he was literally watching Lamar Jackson film and what schemes that they were playing. And that's how that he became more effective as a runner. That's why they decided to bring in DJ Moore, because they said Lamar has a clear weapon inside. We could get DJ on the outside, bring him to the middle through post route slants, things like that. And it's the same exact game plan that the Browns are going to be able to run against the Ravens. And this year, the Browns have, and for Lamar's entire career against the Browns, he's kind of struggled. Lamar's not great in division games. Stefanski's a great head coach. He knows how to plan against mobile quarterbacks. There's more than enough reasons not to play Fields. And the alternative is the best quarterback in football. So for me, I don't think I need to question benching Mahomes for Fields. If there were other elite quarterbacks on your team, you probably shouldn't have had both anyway, so it wouldn't be a question. But there's guys you can bench him for. Justin Fields is not one of them.
Cool. Agreed. From Deshaun, we love this question. Every week in a 16-man full PPR league, Chigi Okonowu on the Titans or Logan Thomas as a flex start. I'm sorry, a tight end. It's Chigi or Logan Thomas. So Chigi's against the Texans and Logan Thomas is against the Rams. I think I like Logan Thomas a little bit more, and here's why. I think all and any targets are going to DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's the Derrick Henry show. And for the Commanders, they do spread the ball around a little bit. Howell's had a very decent top 10 fantasy season. I think I would lean a little bit more on Logan Thomas.
I agree with you here, Nick. I'd go on Logan Thomas. I think it's the higher upside.
Then his flex start, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dante Foreman, or Jahan Dotson. Now, I think I would have said Dotson, but I don't really want to play two Commanders.
Correct. That's exactly my thought. You know what? I'm going to change. I would rather play Okonkwo and Dotson.
Yeah, we got it.
The stack of Washington.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't want to play Foreman. I definitely don't want to play Wan'Dale Robinson. So
totally,
yeah, that's what I'd go with. Okay, we're in sync there. All right, Chiefs, Pats. Who are you playing this on besides Mahomes?
I think if you want to play one of the running backs, I think you'll be fine. I don't think it'll be great. I think
it should be McKinnon, though.
I agree. I think McKinnon's 1A, or I guess 2A, and then Clyde is 2B. Clyde will get more of the touches, but McKinnon's going to get the red zone work, and he's going to get the third down pass catching opportunity. I would play Rashee Rice. He's been very solid. He's put together a few very good weeks. He's now having a better season than Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers will unquestionably start with more weapons on that team, or more playable fantasy relevant options on that team. I would obviously, you start Patrick Mahomes, you start Travis Kelce. On the Patriots side of the ball, Ezekiel Elliott could be a league winner. I'm very surprised we've not gotten Zeke questions, and it might be because a lot of people are just so confident in what's it called? In Zeke after that 1 week performance. They're on a 10-day bye. I don't think he's going to put up 27 again. I do think he will put up a 12 to 15 point fantasy day and be good enough to be in your starting lineup. I don't think he's going to present the ceiling he did last week.
Okay. My only other thing is I might want to sneak Juju in a deep lineup.
That's fine.
In Deshaun's 16-man league or 14-man league, I think Juju might sneak in there.
Sure, that's fair.
All right, so Omar's saying he could afford to play the upside of Fields. I would love to see who you started, because I'm not sure if your starting lineup's this big. But he says your roster though is Saquon, Etienne, Rashad White, and Tony Pollard. So he may have started all four of them. I guess he did. Then he has Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, and Olave. Laporta at tight end, 49ers D, and Aubrey as his kicker. So, but I would still play Mahomes, because what number did Laporta? Was it 30 points, 35? What number did Laporta even put up last night? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it was somewhere between 27 and 30.
So I would play Mahomes, because don't even chase the high upside of Fields, because you already have a lead with Laporta. I would just play Mahomes because you have the safe pick and you don't need to chase your upside. He said Laporta got 28.9. So yeah, I wouldn't even chase the upside of Fields.
Lagota.
I do see that. Yeah.
I play
Yeah,
against
I wouldn't.
him, so I don't think he's the GOAT. I hate this guy. Well, send us a screenshot of your matchup because I think we need to see what because you clearly have a very good team. If your opponent's projected just as many points, then yes, you do need to chase. You do need to keep chasing. If you need the safe floor or the high up, I think the safer floor would actually be Justin Fields in this matchup because that rushing floor he's going to get 7 rushing attempts. He's going to be able to put up enough yards. I just think Patrick Mahomes is clearly a better quarterback and a better matchup with a better situation. So, is it possible Mahomes has a 12 to 15 point fantasy day? Sure. And Justin Fields should probably lock in 10 with his rushing upside and his passing, obviously. But I don't think Justin Fields is going to crack 22 fantasy points, which Patrick Mahomes, if you drafted him to drop 20 to 25 a game. So I think you roll Mahomes out there.
Omar, if you want, our Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod. So is our Instagram. If you want, tweet us a screenshot or send us a screenshot on Instagram of your lineup, and we can tweak a couple of these things. But yeah, I don't think you could go wrong at this point, especially when you already played Laporta. Yeah, he says opponent had Pittman and Moss. It's a 2-week playoff format, though. He does have Bijan, Kyron Williams, and Stafford. Is all I'm really worried about. Yeah, I mean, 2-week playoff, you could switch your lineup in and out every week. I think you can roll at Fields if you like that, but I would rather play Mahomes though. But I think you're going to win this week, and then you could reassess next week depending on how many points you're up.
Just 2 quick fantasy relevant news for the games that I'm seeing from Rappaport.
Okay.
Tyreek Hill going to be testing out his ankle shortly, but there is a lot of optimism from the Dolphins that he is going to be out there and playing. And then Chris Olave, there is a lot of doubt that he is going to play this week.
That's what I was reading last night.
So looking likely Olave out, Tyreek Hill in.
All right, let's keep it with Olave. Next game here on the list is the Giants at the Saints. Keep asking those questions, guys. Going to keep being live until the end of it. So we do see a question in the chat. I'll get through these injuries in the Saints game first. Like we just said, Olave has an ankle injury. He's listed as questionable, and he's technically doubtful at this point, according to Rappaport. So he probably doesn't play, is my guess. Here's some news. Darren Waller with a hamstring was injured, activated off the injured reserve on Saturday, but the tight end is still listed as questionable to play. Let's do this game quick first, Nick, then we'll go to the question. Who do you like playing in this game between the Giants and the Saints?
Taysom Hill. I think it's a big Taysom Hill game. I don't have him playing in my lineup because Njoku's been way too consistent for me to bench him. But Taysom Hill is definitely a must start at this point of the year. Alvin Kamara, obviously a play. I'm sure we'll get questions about pass catchers for the Saints. If it is not Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed is your highest upside play there in a more favorable matchup. I think the Giants are going to outright win this game with Tommy Cutlets. I think they're going to keep that hot streak going. And on that side of the ball, it's Saquon. I am not comfortable putting Darren Waller in my lineup.
Are you benching your Saints defense then?
No, because I think it's just going to be a low scoring game. I think you're looking at a 17 to 13 finish.
But you just think that the Giants win the low scoring game is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I agree with everything that Nick said. Just one little sneaky play. I think Jimmy Graham could be a sneaky play here.
He's got a couple touchdowns lately.
He does. He's a little bit of a sneaky play.
On the Darren Waller side, because I'm sure there's some people that I'm on the waivers that want to play. He only had 1 game this year over 8 fantasy points. Do not put him out there. Do not put him out there.
Yeah, you're banking on you're banking on like him turning back the clock kind of. All right. From Actison, I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. The Punishment League, half-point PPR. Playing to not wrestle my friend with a lot of cigarettes in my mouth. Pick 3: James Cook, DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott, or Zay Flowers. This is full PPR pick 3 for running back and flex spot. Well, Zay Flowers is your flex. I think that's Nick crazy. Might agree with me.
I don't know yet.
James Cook, DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott, or Zay Flowers.
Here, I have one more question. Can you flex the tight end in this league? And if you can, Here would be the three that. Is it two? Okay, sorry, hold on. Is it one running back and two flex? Is it two running backs and one flex? Can you flex tight end in your league? My number one lock is James Cook. If I were to lock, if you need a second running back, I would put Zeke in over Swift. If you need the tight end upside, I think I would go Evan Engram for his consistency. So you do need two running backs. So mine would be James Cook, DeAndre Swift, flex Zay Flower. Play Evan Engram, flex David Njoku over Zay Flowers.
Okay. I would flex Zay Flowers. I think it's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think Zay is the top guy over there. I would play James Cook, and I think I'd play Swift over my Seahawks defense. I do like playing people against the Seahawks defense. Good luck. With Olave out, do I start a wide receiver 2, Drake London, Zay Flowers, or Raheed Shaheed? I'm all over Zay Flowers, so I would say Zay Flowers. But Drake London had a really good game last week, and the Panthers defense stinks big time.
Flowers or Jones?
Yeah, please let us know about that. You're right.
I was thinking Zay Jones when I saw that.
Yeah, Zay Flowers or Zay Jones.
I would go if it's Flowers, I'd go Flowers. If it's Jones, I'd go Shaheed.
Cool. He did say he can flex the tight end. I'm gonna say 2 running backs and a flex. Okay.
Got it. Yep.
Oh, two running backs and a flex. I just want to read this again. Two running back. Oh yeah, so 2 running backs and the flex. James Cook, DeAndre Swift were with the 2 running backs I selected. It is Zay Flowers, by the way. So I would play Zay Flowers That's what I would do.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Let's get to Stanley.
All right. Stanley goes, do I play Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love? You're playing Jalen Hurts every single week, no matter the matchup. Do I play Patrick Mahomes or Jordan Love? Patrick Mahomes, almost every single week.
I agree, but I think Love could outscore him. But I do think I would stick with Patrick Mahomes. Packers
owner Nick loves his Jordan Love.
Yep.
All right. Omar said he sent us the lineup on X. So let me go to the X account real quick.
X.
I'm not seeing it. The account is PrimeTimeFFPod. Did you send it over DM? Because I'm not seeing it DM either. Or did you
look in the bottom left corner of our screen? You'll see the @ there. That's where you can DM it to us or exit.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it in the mentions or the DM. It's PrimeTimeFFPod. I'm gonna write it in the chat.
We could start previewing the next game in the meantime.
Yeah, let's do that. He did send it to the wrong ones. He'll send it in a second. Okay, next game, Falcons at the Panthers. No injury news in this one. I think it's supposed to be a pretty rainy game though. That nasty storm's going to the East Coast. Is it just like Bijan or bust at this point for the game?
This is the worst matchup of the Sunday slate, and it is also the best matchup because there's so much playoff on the line for both these teams. There's so much pick implications for both these teams. And I don't think there's any single person that's going to want to watch this game. If you did not see online, tickets are selling for 45 cents each, or at the lowest. So this is clearly the worst game of the slate. As Nick said, $30 for parking, $30 for food. But you know, that's kind of where we're at now with this Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons team. For your fantasy lineups, Chuba Hubbard, I think, is a fine play. The last 3 weeks have been on the up and up. He's overtaken Miles Sanders clearly in the lineup. Nick, I'm going to ask you, as an Adam Thielen advocate, how do you feel about him?
Oh, I am not an Adam Thielen advocate anymore. He was great for the first 8 to 10 weeks, and then he's not been great for the back half of the season. That's part of the reason why I think in our league I did not make the playoffs. I did not have the flex spots that a lot of the other playoff teams had because Thielen was one of my flex guys. So I am not an Adam Thielen advocate at this point. I think he's very benchable depending on who you have. In our league, I really couldn't bench him because I didn't have many good options. I started off hot in our league, so I never had a top waiver. I never got a top guy, and then I was so bad on the back half of our season that I could never replenish my flex spot, and I didn't draft well enough in the back half. So I would not play Adam Thielen down the stretch unless you really absolutely kind of need to, and he'll get you like 10 to 12 points. But I think there's better options for sure.
I think AJ Terrell is going to shut him down. He shut down Mike Evans last week, and if you can shut down Mike Evans, you could definitely shut down the vegetable that is Adam Thielen. On the Falcons side of the ball, I agree with Nick. It's Bijan Robinson. I always have questions about London and Pitts. This is probably one of their more favorable matchups, but this game also screams Arthur Smith's going to hand the ball to those 3 running backs a total of 40 times this game. So I'm comfortable not playing any of them, expecting that if Carolina does not get a lead early in this game, they will never get a lead, and Atlanta will run the clock the entire way. So, and the weather is not going to be great for the game. So you're looking at a very, very solid chance for both these teams to be bad. I think Atlanta's defense is a very good play in your leagues.
Okay. I did just send Nick the rosters for you, Omar. We'll go through that in 1 second. We do have a question here. The foolish GM. Pick 2, DeAndre Hopkins, Nico Collins, Amari Cooper. Well, I think I could pick 2 because I'm not sure Nico Collins is going to play. And even if he does play, I'm not sure I want to play him. Hopkins is my number 1 on this list for sure. Definitely want to lock him in. And I think Cooper against the Bears is a favorable matchup as well.
Totally agree with you, Nick.
Okay. Did you get the pictures I just sent you?
Yep, I got it.
All right, let me take a quick look as well. So he's on the right. Right now he's starting Barkley and Rashad White, and he's benching Pollard and Etienne. I can agree with that. I'll roll with that. What do you think?
Yeah. Nah,
not coming for your head for starting Eckler, by the way, but next week I'll bench him for sure.
Yeah. I don't think Eckler just belongs in the lineup. I think I'd put Diggs in there comfortably over him. I would go Etienne over Barkley.
Okay. I can agree to that.
But I mean, your team is loaded. You should not have any reason to lose this game. You have more than enough stars on your lineup, and your opponent frankly does not have anyone near the talent level of your receiver room or your running back room. Maybe Kyron, but I mean, I think you got a ton of stars. I don't think you can really go wrong wherever
you're not benching Tyreek Hill, so I feel like your lineup's kind of set right now.
Yeah, I agree.
I would just get like Stephon Diggs in there every single week. He's just a guy I just personally he's just on my not bench list like ever. Can
I tell you a stat that kind of surprised me about Diggs this year?
Yes.
He has not broken 100 yards since week 6 this year. And as someone that's owned him in leagues, I don't think I've noticed because he's put up so many touchdowns. But over his last 4 games, it's been 6-6, 19-6. So Diggs is on the decline. He's still the wide receiver 6 on the year because he started out so hot. And I do think that he's going to surge back and bounce back for the playoffs. At least that's what I'm hoping. So we'll see what happens with him. But I understand you're benching Diggs at the moment.
He said the guy with Hurts and CMC somehow missed the playoffs. That's kind of crazy.
That is a little ridiculous. If you drafted CMC, you should not be missing the playoffs.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, next game. We're into the 4 o'clocks now. We're going a little bit long on the show today, but that's okay. We have no out time. So keep asking those questions, guys. We're going to keep doing this until we're done with the games. That's just how we do it.
Yep.
Commanders at the Rams. Brian Robinson has a hamstring injury and has been ruled out for Sunday's game. This is a big one. We haven't gotten one Robinson question on the show, and I think that's why maybe I didn't realize it, but that's pretty big. He's been awesome. And as for the Rams, no injury news. So Nick, my first question for you is, how do you feel about slotting Antonio Gibson in this week if you need a running back?
I say it every week. I don't love a non-star running towards Aaron Donald. I don't love it. I really don't. Although I do recognize that he probably is going to be an RB2 on a lot of teams because of injuries. There's been a lot of injuries in fantasy this year. And ones that don't always affect your running back room. Like, for example, if you have Devin Singletary as your RB2, I don't want him going up against the Titans without CJ Stroud. Like, I would totally transition to Gibson there. But, yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about this game? Who do you want to play? Who do you not want to play on both sides?
The Rams, I mean, Kyron Williams is going to be a league winner very clearly. Puka Nacua, clearly. Cooper Kupp, clearly. is it Demarcus Robinson who everybody's been getting hyped about because he's had a couple good weeks in a row.
Yeah, I think
I don't know if I
so.
love that, but this game should be a shootout. I think Matthew Stafford could be very solid if you need for your fantasy team. Sam Howell has been very good. I mean, there's a lot of fantasy relevance in this game. And I think it's because both teams have a lot of weapons and a lot of places to spread the ball. This could easily be one of the best games of the day, with zero real football implications outside of the Rams potentially fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah. All right. Next game, the juggernaut 49ers against the Arizona Cardinals. Marquise Brown had a heel, still with a heel injury, did practice Friday, so I think he's going to play. I mean, Nick, for the San Francisco side, you just play everybody. That's an easy one every week at this point.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Purdy's definitely a start, and CMC. Those are your 5 guys, and you play them every single Sunday or Thursday.
And you probably play the defense every week as well.
For the most part, this is definitely a good matchup to play them.
Yep. Omar also said he put Etienne over Barkley. And the Cardinals, Nick, who are you playing from the Cardinals, if anybody? Because me personally, I wouldn't play any Cardinal. Maybe Trey McBride, because that position, the tight end position is so thin.
I would definitely play McBride. He's been one of the best tight ends on the back half of the year, by a mile. I mean, since taking over for Zach Ertz from the injury, the games have been 25-5, 22, 10, 13, 23, just coming off a bye week. He has really ascended over the last few weeks, and the gap at tight end is not too big. I would not be surprised if he could finish as the tight end 6 or 7 on the year. And if you took the back half of the year, he'd be in the top 5. So lot of upside for him moving forward.
All right, we got a question on Instagram. I think it's one of your guys. Nick B _1395 joined. He goes, Ayo, start 1. Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, or DJ Moore. I'm assuming this is PPR. Yep. And Nick, I'll let you kind of take this because this is Mike Evans is one of your guys. This is tough. Mike Evans is an alpha dog going up against the Packers. DJ Moore has been excellent this season and going up against that tough Cleveland's D. And Brandon Ayuk, again, we say start your 49ers. I think I would lean Evans because I think he's the highest upside out of all 3, but I think it's very tough.
I agree with that. I think Evans is the most upside. Number 2 would be Ayuk, and number 3 is DJ Moore. I know the team that he has. I helped him draft it. It is the best wide receiving core that we have ever put together in the history of football. It's that is his flex question. His starting receivers are AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs. Loaded fantasy team, and got to give credit to Nick there.
It's pretty sick. Can I raise you my receiving core a couple years ago because I just love it so much.
Sure.
Of Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, and Deontay Johnson.
Very solid. No question there. Great team.
I can't. That's just like the one. That's the championship that got away from me. And I'll always be sad about it. Okay, Cowboys at the Bills, game of the week. I wish it was a primetime game. It's not.
Oh, dude, makes no sense. They even had the audacity to flex out the Chiefs game, and they didn't put this game in.
So I was told Fox wouldn't give up the Cowboy game.
That makes sense.
I was told that they wanted to flex this one first, and then they didn't. Fox said absolutely not.
I get it.
This is basically a primetime game in the 4 o'clock slot, whether you're watching it. So they always post a map on Twitter. Somebody will post it. It's like what regions are getting like which game. This is probably going to be everywhere in the country. So it's basically a primetime game. All right. Injury report. Brandon Cooks has been very solid. Had an illness Thursday and Friday and is listed as questionable, but I think he's going to go. That's all I got. Just play your guys. I think. I mean, I guess your Cowboys, you're playing CD, Ferguson, Pollard, and Dak, and Brandon Cooks. And your Bills, I think you're playing Diggs, Allen, and probably James Cook, and maybe you're flirting with a Dalton Kincaid or Gabe Davis.
I agree entirely. I am very worried about the Cowboys going up north. Dallas is a very good home weather-controlled team. They're not great on the road historically. Me and Nick have a lot of fantasy opinions. These are probably the two teams I've been the most spearheaded and strongest on for the last
Nick's
month.
been on them for like 8 weeks at this point. Nick said it, I think, in week 6 or 7 that this was like his bold Super Bowl prediction or something.
Yeah, well, I have Buffalo over San Fran, but I think Dallas is going to win that division. I said it 3 weeks ago that the stretch was going to be Philly loses the 2 and Dallas wins the tougher games. This is where Dallas' season is on the line.
Yep.
And I don't think they're going to be able to win this game on the road.
I call this MVP watch as well, because I mean, some people are disagreeing with me on this take, and that's okay. I think Josh Allen's on MVP watch because Josh Allen beat the Chiefs, I think it was last week, and then he's going to have Dallas. He has Miami to close out the season, and I think he may have one more.
He has
game as
I
well.
think he has New England and the Chargers as well.
Yes, you're right. So
Which would have been considered harder games, but now they're not. So.
Right, but I think that if Josh Allen finishes the season on a 5-game winning streak, beating the Chiefs, Dallas, and winning the division against Miami, I think if his stats are up there, I think Josh Allen's on MVP watch. And I think if he outplays Dak today, he's on MVP watch. But if Dak wins this game and outplays him, then I think Dak is almost solidifying himself the MVP.
Here's the path to Buffalo winning the division and Allen winning the MVP. Buffalo needs to win out. They're going to need Brock Purdy to slip up at some point because Purdy is going to win that MVP if Dak loses today and Allen does not catch him. Lamar has to play the Dolphins in the second to last week of the season.
17.
I think your championship week or next week. In that game, Miami needs to beat the Ravens so that Lamar has some hiccup over the last month of football because it's always whoever has the momentum now. So you're going to need the Buffalo 5-game win streak against 3 top opponents win the division. You're going to need Miami to lose the division. They're going to have to lose to Dallas. They're going to have to lose to Buffalo to end the year. And they'll have to – I think they have to lose – no, if they do those two and lose to Buffalo, they lose the division.
Yeah, if Miami loses one game, then Buffalo controls their own destiny.
Exactly. So Buffalo could totally get there. And then you could be looking at Buffalo being 11-6, and at 11-6, it's so annoying. Kansas City, and I love the Chiefs. Kansas City can very easily win out and will finish with the 1 seed with this kind of formula. You need Baltimore to lose to. I think
Baltimore would have to lose 2 games. Baltimore's 10-3. They would have to lose 2 games.
They. Knowing them, they'll slip one of the division games, and then they have San Francisco. So that game, I think that's the game where you're probably going to see is that Lamar.
Baltimore has at Jacksonville, at San Francisco, hosting Miami, hosting Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the tightest MVP races to close the year. But
which
there's
is crazy.
4 guys.
Nobody's also like played super. In my opinion, nobody's played like lights out MVP. Which is
the only person I would say statistically has been Brock Purdy. But if you have 2 eyes, you understand. Purdy's a very good quarterback. He's not the most valuable player in football.
Exactly.
And we're not going to get into a full debate on what the award really means for fantasy. But let's just say there's 4 clear number 1s that can be debated after this week.
All right, let's move on to the Sunday night game. It's a pretty good Sunday night game. Not as good as the 4:00 game, but that's okay. Ravens at the Jaguars. No real injury news in this one. Who are you playing in Sunday night? I'm going to check the weather report while you're talking. I think it's going to be rainy unless the rain has passed, but I'll check for you.
Jaguar side, Trevor Lawrence has been. Let me pull it up because I was shocked when I saw it. Ever since I benched him in my league.
No rain tonight and about 15-mile-per-hour winds, so you're not really worried. It's going to be a bit windy and rainy earlier in the day, but should be fine for game time.
Since week 11, the last 4, Trevor Lawrence is the QB1 in fantasy football. He's averaging the 2nd most points per game at the quarterback position. Trevor Lawrence did the same exact thing last year. 10 rough weeks, last 8, he proved he's a superstar caliber quarterback. And he is going to do the same with knowing that Trevor Lawrence has to be in your lineup. And it's ever since I benched him. I benched him for Kyler Murray at that point in the year, and he heated up. And thank you very much. But you're going to win me a playoff game, Trevor. So it's okay. Evan Ingram must start. The receiving core, I think Ridley is going to struggle in this matchup. But he's another guy like Deontay Johnson, where I say, if you've trusted him to this point in the season, you can't bench him now. You got to keep trusting your guys. Evan Ingram must start. Travis Etienne been a top 5 back this year. No reason to pivot off of him. Ravens side of the ball. Lamar is the only player that you can comfortably lock. Zay Flowers, last 2 games, 20 points. One of them came because he got that big breakaway rushing touchdown, which was kind of a fluke. So I don't think there's enough Ravens you comfortably start. But again, if Likely was your guy, go with Likely. If Flowers was your guy, go with Flowers. If you trust one of those running backs all year, trust them again. But I personally will not be trusting anyone in the running back room.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Nick said. And Monday night game, Seahawks at the Eagles at the Seahawks. It's kind of a get right game for both teams, but I think it's more of a get right game for the Eagles. So injury report for the Seahawks. Geno Smith is questionable with a groin injury. He was limited in practice. Let me see what else we have here. I don't see an injury designation for both Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet, so I assume both are good to go. In this game, if you have to play Geno, maybe, but I feel like you're just playing your guys. It's DK, it's Ken Walker, and then on the Eagles side, you're playing AJ Brown, you're playing Devontae Smith, you're playing Jalen Hurts. Then you could toy around with Goddard or Swift, depending on your lineup.
I agree with Nick here. The one thing I will say is I am trusting Geno Smith against the secondary that allows the most points to quarterbacks. Seattle has been on, I don't want to say a heater, but their offense has definitely shown a lot more signs of life and flourishing over the last few weeks.
Offense has not been the problem with the Seahawks.
And I believe the report from Carol, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that Geno's been practicing and will likely be good to go.
Limited in practice, I would be shocked if he didn't play.
I have Drew Lock on my bench just in case, because you are taking a big Monday night swing. So just be prepared, because your opponent, if I'm telling you, if I were playing against the Geno Smith owner, I would go roster Drew Lock on my bench right now to screw them over if he's out, of course. So hedge your bet. Make sure you have him.
All right. Maybe your final question. We're going to do plugs after this, so you can drop your questions during that as well. From who called well. Brandon Cooks or OBJ? I like this question a lot, but I think I want to lean Brandon Cooks here.
I want to see what they've done the last few weeks, because I think both have heated up more.
I think so too. I think Brandon Cooks just more of like a sure thing, where the Ravens to me every week is kind of you're rolling the dice. If you don't, besides Lamar, but everybody else, feel like you're kind of rolling the dice with, and you'll see where they land on for that week. It's like a Monopoly board.
Yeah, they both kind of have the same last 5-game stretch where it's like it's either 15-20 or it's 5-ish. I'm gonna go Odell just because I don't trust the weather up there in Buffalo.
Okay.
And Dallas as a road team. Although I would say rest of season Cooks is the play.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty, guys, that is our show. We went an hour 30. Thank you so much for your questions, for interacting, for joining. We appreciate you guys so much. Remember, we have a live show getting you ready for your weekly matchups and now your playoff matchups every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time on our YouTube, Facebook, and now Instagram. So if you're on our YouTube right now, please subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that. Drop a like on this video and any video you watch in the future. Hit the little bell icon so you get notifications every single time that we go live. Our other channels, Facebook is Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Follow that page. Instagram and Twitter, PrimeTimeFFPod. Follow us there. Twitter's your best opportunity to ask us questions when we aren't live. That's going to be our fastest response time for sure. Aside from that, we do a weekly show as well. Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It is live again on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And then that also gets uploaded to our audio streaming platforms the next day in case you can't watch us live. And the audio streaming platforms are basically anywhere where you get a podcast: iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. Thank you again for watching and interacting. Best of luck in week 1, and we'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.